try to answer this question in two parts. One is what does the literature say, and what actually is the answer to these questions. So just as a preamble, we all know that this would be the classification of the ureteroscopes: rigid, semi-rigid, flexible, fiber optic, digital. But the point of interest here is that most of the single-use disposable ureteroscopes are digital. In fact, all of them. I would not like to go through the history as in the interest of time, but just 4 lines about the history. As you can see here that it was in 1964 that ACMI was the first company to actually pave the way for flexible ureteroscopy, following which this was done by Marshall. And it took the next 4 decades for Demetrius Bagley to come out with the first successful procedure in the humans. But what I want to highlight here is that the first disposable flexible ureteroscope for accessing the upper urinary tract was developed by the same gentleman, Dr. Demetrius Bagley. And it took us 3 decades to actually make it popular for the first flexible disposable scope to come out. So what is the answer to this question? Why it took 3 decades? The flexible ureteroscopes, which we are going to discuss in the next half an hour, would be the following: the polyscope, the semiflex, flexor view, but we will be discussing on the LithoVue, the Buseven, and the Biorad. I'll not go into the specifications, but just to give an answer to the question, I feel that these are the possible reasons why we need to have a flexible disposable ureteroscope. Probably the additional repair costs that are involved, the additional costs that are required for the hospital personnel, and the cost for cleaning, they may be the downside for conventional ureteroscopes. There is a possibility of recurrent damage after use in conventional ureteroscopes. Profuse cleaning of these instruments and working channels may require further specialized staff, again adding to the cost. There is a concern, particularly in gastroenterology, that there is a possibility of transmission of infectious diseases, particularly the HBS Aegis care. And finally, how to train residents with these costly equipments, that is the conventional flexible ureteroscopes. This is what was given in this paper. But what I feel that we should consider the following 5 points, which I'll discuss each point in 1 minute as to what is the importance and what is the answer to the question that was asked to me. So we go one by one, that is processing and cleaning of ureteroscopes. If you take the conventional ureteroscopes, these are the 7 steps that are required for cleaning or sterilizing the ureteroscope: pre-cleaning, leak test, manual cleaning, rinsing, drying, sterilization, storage, etc., etc. But what is important, you see the amount of time that is required for doing all these things. The pre-cleaning will take approximately 10 minutes, then manual cleaning for the 10 minutes, rinsing, then actually going to the sterilization, storage, and then start over all again. So this will add to the cost, and particularly when there is a high volume center, this would be very much detrimental, particularly in large turnover cases. So single-use ureteroscopes actually overcome all these problems. There is no reprocessing time. The time saved is actually the time saved for the patient, and it is actually money saved. That would be the first reason why I feel that flexible disposable ureteroscopes would be there. The second thing is the performance in comparison to the conventional scopes. A simple question that we need to ask is, do the flexible disposable ureteroscope have the same clinical outcome as we have in conventional ureteroscope? And the answer would be a resounding yes, as you can see in these multiple reviews. I'll not go into the details of the same. The next question that we need to ask is, they may be equivalent, but are they of any additional benefit? This paper, as you can see from the stalwarts that have authored this paper, from Olivier Traxler, Oliver Weisman, Bhaskar Somani, all of them are there. This paper, a systematic review, shows that the single-use flexible ureteroscopes actually have gotten better deflection capability. They actually are better in comparison to the vision characteristics as compared to the reusable ureteroscopes. We go to point number 3. I am not going to discuss this point as I will be treading on the time of Dr. Sabnis, so I will not go into this point of micro costing. But I'm sure that during the course of the webinar, we'll be discussing about the micro costing part of disposable flexible ureteroscopes. We'll go to the next aspect as to why flexible disposable ureteroscopes have got an edge over conventional ureteroscopes. That is the difficult anatomy part. The question that was asked is that whether flexible difficult anatomies such as difficult lower polar stones, difficult angles, or maybe anomalous kidneys. This paper, again, from a very renowned group, also says that these ureteroscopes are particularly useful in this such difficult anatomies. Just to give you an example, this was a case that was just done today in the morning, and you can see that we are using a flexible disposable ureteroscope, and you see the amount of angle that the scope can turn on. I'll not go into the make of this ureteroscope, but you can see that even though if you give this ureteroscope to a trainee surgeon or a novice surgeon, actually the attending surgeon will not be worried about it, about the deflection part. And finally, coming to the fifth aspect, which I consider is very important, that is the resident training. The bottlenecks in training and resident in an training setup would be the cost of reusable flexible ureteroscopes, the fear of damage the potential to damage the optical systems and the deflection mechanism during the training, and need to train the residents on all variety of scopes. So as you can see, just as an example, I'm giving here that in the past 60 days, we have done 16 flexible ureteroscopies. And among these, because of these flexible ureteroscopes, even our PGY1 and PGY3 are in a position to do flexible ureteroscopies, just because of this particular fact that they are equivalent and cost factor is partially annulled in these particular ureteroscopes. So whenever you are using a disposable scope, you can freely use them for training residents, particularly even in this difficult access such as the lower pole access, without the fear of damaging the scope. So definitely it has got a value in training the residents. And finally, the risk of cross and iatrogenic infections in conventional scopes. This was actually the landmark study, which was actually published in GI surgery, medical GI endoscopy, which says that who were positive for HBsAg. And what they found that the positive test was obtained from 42% of the samples in the saliva, 32% in gastric juices. So these results should be taken as a warning that calls for more careful screening of patient and disinfection of endoscopes. So my question is, have you thought about this thing, particularly in urology? So from this aspect, I feel that definitely flexible disposable ureteroscopes must be having an edge. So finally, to conclude, as I said, that this paper noted that these are the 5 important factors which say that why disposable flexible ureteroscopes are essential. But I would modify a little bit and say that actually the bottom line would be that these could be the important and additional reasons to say that why it is important to use flexible disposable ureteroscopes. I would say for difficult lower polar anatomy, without the need to worry about the deflection loss, you can train surgeons in the art of flexible ureteroscopy again without worrying about the scope durability. Flexible ureteroscopies can be used, these ureteroscopes can be used for anomalous kidneys and difficult lower polar anatomy. And finally, in low volume centers who are performing ureteroscopies, this might be a cost effective option, which of course we are going to discuss. Thank you very much for your patient listening.
Well, thank you, Ganpule, for a nice overview and reasoning out as to what are the benefits of the disposable ureteroscopy and what other factors are to be considered when you are actually comparing the single-use versus reusable. Well, all these questions we are going to take up, all those questions are going to arise at the end. But having understood that single-use ureteroscope has benefits, now let us come to the discussion and consider the different scopes which are actually in use in our country. Well, there are 3 main ureteroscopes which are at present used by the Indian urologists. One is LithoVue by Boston Scientific, the other one is PUSEN, and the third one is a Biorad. So majority of the people in India who are using a flexible disposable ureteroscope, majority of them are one of these 3 scopes. So let us see one by one what are the overviews of these particular ureteroscopes. So first I invite Dr. P.P. Rao, who will give overview of his experience of using LithoVue from Boston Scientific. P.P. Rao, as you know, has vast experience of carrying out a flexible ureteroscope. He was involved in a lot of trials of the flexible ureteroscopy, and he has been using this LithoVue for quite a long time. So over to you, P.P., for your overview on PUSEN ureteroscope.
Thank you, sir. I would like to thank my teachers, Dr. Desai and Dr. Subnis, for inviting me to speak at this session. I'm going to be speaking on LithoVue disposable flexible video ureteroscope. And my hospital was the first hospital in India to completely migrate to disposable scopes. This was about 1.5 or 2 years back. We were the first to completely migrate to all disposables, and we have not regretted the decision for a single moment since then. I believe that this is the way to go. I believe that in a year or two, there will be no company which can afford to make a reusable scope anymore, because nobody will be buying them. They're just too prohibitively expensive. So here's my talk on LithoView. So the LithoView was the first easily commercially available disposable ureteroscope. There was a Polyscope before that, but it was not really very useful. This is the first relatively robust scope model which has lasted. You can see how the scope is. This is the scope which is the entire thing, and the one cable connects into the monitor, which has a monitor as well as a recording facility where you can connect a USB drive and record. And the vision quality is fairly good. I would say 80 to 90% of the way towards a Flex XC or a URF-V, but definitely better than almost anything else in the market. The first paper regarding the LithoView was in 2016. It was part of the essay contest for the Society of Endourology. And it showed that you can see the middle images of the Flex XC, but the LithoView is comparable to any other scope. Again, the LithoView holds its
your
own.
slides are not changing.
It's not changing, it's changing here.
No,
oh, 1 second. Sharing is paused. 1 second. Resume share.
You can stop share and reshare. No, please go ahead with the next slide. Because we are seeing only title slide.
Is it changing now? No.
No. So I think you stop share and then start share again. That will work out.
Let me try that. 1 second. Are you changing now?
No.
Okay, I've stopped share now.
Yeah, so now we'll start share.
Okay, 1 second.
That will work.
1 second. Okay. Are you seeing the slide now?
Yes. Make full screen and go ahead.
Still you're seeing it?
Yes, yes, perfect.
And it changed now?
Yeah, it is now showing the LithoView.
No, I changed the slide. Is it changing now?
No.
Sharing is paused.
So, no, then sir, don't go for the full screen.
Sir, use the cursor. Sir, use the cursor on the
left bottom.
Left bottom. Huh? Use the cursor
Change
on the
the
left
slide
bottom.
with the left bottom, not with the.
No, but I'm changing slide. It's not changing with my cursor. But the play, should I be? Can I play? See, now I'm playing it. Okay, now it is shared screen. You're seeing this now. When I change, is it changing or not?
No.
So then there is a problem with that. So I'm going to run it like this now.
Yeah, so better you do without full screen.
But why should that be anyway? So this is the LithoView you are seeing here with the monitor.
Yeah.
You connect the scope to that monitor. This was the original paper, which was from the Society of Endourology essay contest, which evaluated the LithoView first and showed that it had a full deflection equal to any of the other, even fiber optic scopes, even more than the digital scopes, and similar irrigation characteristics with the 3.6 French channel. It showed that you could access the lower calyx even with the 365 micron fiber. Obviously, there is a fraction of deflection lost, but it's still a fairly robust scope. And like Arvind mentioned, because it's a disposable scope, you are able to take more liberties with this than you would do with a reusable scope. The first multi-center trial published in 2017 again, it showed that this scope is as good as any other scope. It could work. It had excellent downward deflection. Basically, it was equal to any of the other available fiber optic and flexible scopes. Here's the thing showing 7.7 French tip, which is probably the smallest among all the disposables, the smallest among any of the video scopes. And although the shaft is 9.5 French, pretty lightweight, it's a good scope. And does it compare well with other scopes? In vision, it seems to compare fairly well with the Flex XC, and it's better than most of the other scopes in the market. So that is there. I'll show you a small video. Again, I don't know if this is going to play if I do this. Can you see the video running or no?
No, it's not running.
Okay. I'll just have to run it here.
Yeah, run from there itself.
Yeah. So we don't use access sheets in my unit as far as possible, as you can see, and the litho is fairly easy to pass. We do a semi-rigid ureteroscopy before passing the scope in most of the cases, unless the patient is pre-stented, which again is rare in our unit. But when we are pre-stented, we don't need to do a ureteroscopy first. But in all other patients, we would do a ureteroscopy before passing the scope. But the video scope makes it definitely easier to maneuver in the bladder, as well as to pass it up the ureter with what they call the no-touch technique, no guide wires. You can see some fragmentation of ureteric stone has already been done. And the vision, as you can see, is absolutely superb. And what we have found with the video scopes as against fiber optic scopes is it improves the clearance in intrarenal surgery, because just because the vision is so good and the stones look so big that you're less likely to leave any significant fragments behind. This is borne out by the results which we have presented. We presented our initial data at the World Congress last year, presented by Dr. Jagtap. That time we had done 62 patients. Now we have crossed over 100, and with an excellent clearance of about 96%. We had only 3 patients who had residual stones, which could be tackled easily at the time of the stent removal. Stone-free rate was good. And the most important thing is here, even with the LithoVue, which is slightly bigger than the FlexX2, the need for ureteral dilatation was only in 8 patients, in 8% of patients. Another small video on the showing you the lithotripsy and the quality of image when we are doing the lithotripsy. You can see that the image quality is really very good. I'm just going to put in one slide about costs, that if you notice this, when you compare to reusable scopes, this is of course in the United States or the United Kingdom. At $1,200 a scope, it makes a lot of sense. At $2,500 a scope, it becomes more expensive than a reusable scope. So what the company prices the scope at is very important, even in our market. And that is what will decide whether, and this is true for any of the disposable scopes, the pricing is most important. So 270-degree deflection, both sides, 7.7 French tip diameter, 9.5 French shaft diameter. So it's not going to go through the smallest access sheet if you are using an access sheet. 3.6 French channel is pretty standard. It's a CMOS chip, similar to the FlexXC. Light source is built into the handle, so no cumbersome light cable. Rest of the thing is pretty good. It's easy recording with the USB cable, USB drive, which connects directly to the monitor. Our experience with this scope has been excellent. And for the last 2 years, we are very happy using this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, PP, for very nicely summarizing
about the LithoVue. Now I request Dr. Vijay Patil to give overview of PUSAN. He has done lots of studies on the different scopes, and he is going to give about what he thinks about the PUSAN flexible ureteroscope.
Well, thank you, Sabnis sir and Desai sir, for this opportunity. My talk today would be on PUSAN scope, which is a disposable flexible ureteroscope. So, as was the previous talk regarding LithoVue, it was the second flexible ureteroscope to get US FDA approval, and it came just after the LithoVue. I have nothing to disclose. The flow of the talk would be first introduction about there are 2 scopes available in PUSAN. One is 9.2 French scope and other is a 7.5 scope, which is a prototype currently available for us with us for an analysis and will be soon in the market. Some thing about our in vitro analysis, our clinical experience, and then take home message. So regarding that 9.2 French scope, it has a 120-degree field of view. It has 270-degree up as well as 270-degree down deflection. The tip is 9 French and the proximal shaft is 9.5 French, and the working channel is 3.6 French. So here is a short video about how Poussin flexible scope looks like. It is a working length of 65 centimeter. It has a tip which has a chip-on tip, which is a CMOS type technology. Here there are two buttons which we can designate for freeze, white light, or we can record it with one button as a picture, and other button we can use to record the video. Here we have a side channel for irrigation as well as working channel through which a basket or a laser fiber can be inserted. This is a laser fiber locker so that there is no loss of irrigation. Here we can see there is 270 up deflection as well as 270-degree down deflection. Then we have a monitor to which a scope this scope can be attached. There are two ways you can attach the scope. One is the monitor which is supplied by the company, and other is this adapter where you can attach the scope and then you can attach to any of your HD monitor. So that obviates you to buy this processor which are available with the company. There is a short animated video showing how we access and then the deflection of the scope, and then you access the stone even in lower calyx with very good accessibility. And then you can transfer it to the monitor. This monitor provided by the company has an 8 GB of internal storage where you can record it, and then if it is about 8 GB of storage, then you can record it on your USB or your hard disk. So this is how generally a fiber optic scope vision looks like, and this is how a digital scope vision looks like. And then this 7.5 French scope, the criticism about the currently available digital scope was that they are too big, 9 French and 9.5 French proximal shaft. So this creates sometimes a problem in accessibility, especially in young males which have a tight ureters. So now these digital scopes are also available with 7.5 French scope. This would be soon available in the market. And as you can see, it has the same physical parameters like a 9.2 French scope. It has more than 270-degree two-way deflection, 7.5 French outer diameter, and as well it has a 3.6 working channel, which is as same as 9.2. We did some in vitro analysis about these two scopes, and what we found is at 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter, and 5 centimeter, the color perception of both these scopes is almost comparable. Coming on to image resolution, especially when you want to see the composition of the stone, you want to use the scope for upper urinary tract tumors. So at 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter, and as well as at 5 centimeter, we can see how well it can differentiate between these lines. This highlights the almost comparable image resolution between these two scopes. Then coming on to deflection, first, without any accessory, almost equivalent deflection in both of these scopes. Even if we use a 200 micron laser fibers, there's hardly any loss of deflection even with the 7.5 French scope. If you use a nitinol basket, there is slight decrease in vitro the loss of deflection, but we have quite used it in around 14 cases, even for a lower pole stones, and we can easily basket out the stone and send it to an upper calyx. Regarding irrigation flow rates, we did compare a 9.2 French scope with 7.5 without accessory, with laser fiber, and with the basket. And as you can see, almost even with without deflection, with deflection, the flow rates are almost comparable. And this can be attributed, though the outer diameter has decreased in 7.5, the working channel still remains 3.6 French. So this is a boon. Coming on to comparison of vision in both the scopes, this is a side-by-side comparison between a 9.2 French ureteroscope and a 7.5. So this highlights how crisp the vision is in both of these scopes and how well Then I would like to highlight some of our clinical experience. This is a video which shows 9.7 mm renal pelvic calculus. We are using a 9.2 French ureteroscope. So here in this video, I would like to highlight how the scope is available. This is available in a pre-sterilized pack, which we have to open. Then the surgeon lifts out the scope from the packet. Here is the lever for up deflection as well as down deflection. You can see how well it can deflect 270 degrees on both sides. And then this is the sideway channel where one is used for this is for irrigation, this is for laser, and then this goes to the unit which is the processor. So this is one way of attaching to it, and then immediately you have the vision which is ready to go. Then this is the access to the kidney. So you can see how well the scope goes into the pelvic collection system. In this case, we were using Moses laser fiber to laser the stone. You can see how well the vision is, especially when we have a laser fiber in situ and also when the lasering is going on. So since it has a 3.6 French working channel, the vision remains clear even when we are lasing the stone, and that is why the surgeon can continue lase the stone without waiting for the vision to clear. And then we could completely clear off the stone. Coming on to the next case, here we are using a 7.5 French scope. For the want of the time, I took only one case, which is 18 mm lower calyceal stone. And you can see how well the 7.5 French scope can access the lower pole, as you can see from this fluoroscopy image. The two things to be seen: the scope 7.5 French scope has the laser fiber in situ. It has accessed the lower pole very well. Now it is lasing the stone. Even with the laser fiber in situ, the stone being in lower calyx, the vision is excellent. So the surgeon doesn't have to wait. The vision is quite clear even during lasing in the lower pole, and that very well answers all the questions regarding the 7.5 French scope, accessibility, vision, and everything. And that is why I chose this lower pole stone, which highlights all the characteristics of a 7.5 French scope. So this is the experience. We had 93 cases of 9.2 French scopes and 14 cases of 7.5 scopes, and we had no problems in any of the case. So take-home message is that single-use scopes decrease maintenance cost, decrease infection transmission, decrease turnover of the time of the case. And this thin 7.5 French single-use digital scope may mitigate all the problems faced by the current available 9 French digital scopes. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, Patil, for that nice overview.
Then, now let us go to Dr. Abhishek, who is going to give the overview of the next common flexible uteroscope which is used in India, and that's a Biorad. Biorad, as you know, is the Indian company, and that makes lots of other accessories and other disposable items of the use to the urologist. And they have come out with the flexible ureteroscope, and they have also now come out with the 7.5 ureteroscope. And shortly, we also will be doing that trial. So Abhishek is going to give the overview of what is his experience about the Biorad flexible single-use ureteroscope.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. So, a very good evening to all the viewers. I am Dr. Abhishek Singh from MPUH, and I would be speaking on endoscopes by Biorad Medical Systems. I have nothing to disclose. We are heading for Atmanirbhar Bharat, so promoting all the things that can be assembled or made in India. So I would be describing the scope under the headings of physical characteristics, ergonomics, irrigation, deflection, and usability. This particular scope has a shaft length of about 67 centimeters, a shaft size of 9 French, working channel of 3.3 French, has a dual deflection of 270 degrees. When you compare it with other digital scopes, non-reusable digital scopes, it's slightly thicker. If you see Flexex 6V2, they are about 8.5 Frenchish in the shaft, but the channel size is about 3.6. This particular scope has a shaft length of about 67 centimeters and a working length about 3.3 French. So going ahead, if you look at it, the ergonomic characters of the scope is actually really lightweight. When it is about 294 grams and the handle is only 180 grams, which is definitely comparable to the LithoVue and the U scope. But when you compare it with the fiber optic scopes, it's slightly lighter and much more light when it is compared to the digital scopes. This particular study published in Journal of Endourology actually mentions about ergonomics and flexible ureteroscopy. And when they compared the ergonomics of all the scopes, the ergonomics of the reusable scopes were better. So it is this particular machine is a simple machine. It is a plug and play machine. It comes with an adapter. Unlike the LithoVue or the U scope, it does not come with a dedicated monitor. It comes with an adapting system which has an integrated light source. The adapting system gets fixed into the plug of the scope, and then eventually the transmission occurs. It has an integrated light source also. A USB is there where you can put in a USB drive and a recording can be done. When you compare the scope with a fiber optic scope and a digital scope, you could see that the Biorad scope fares equally good. Here you can compare the fiber optic scope with the digital scope and the Biorad scope. The dusting achieved with the Biorad scope gives a good vision and is comparable to any other digital scope, and definitely better than a fiber optic scope. Relative weight of the endoscope is very light. It is only 180 grams handle, and as I told you that it is comparable to it is actually lighter than P5, P6 or Flexex 2. And when you compare it with the digital scopes, it is much more lighter. And the LithoVue weighs about 277 grams. So it is in comparison to the LithoVue. Relative length of the flexible tip. The flexible tip component of all the ureteroscopes is very important. Here in this particular scope, the flexible tip is about 7 centimeters, which can help you achieve all the end goals, like maneuvering the scope through all the calyces. And the length, of course, is about 67 centimeters. The vision or the optics of endoscope are very good. The field of view is about 110 degrees. The line of view is 0 degree. Depth of view is about 2 mm to 50 mm. Illuminator is a fiber optic type, and it uses a digital CMOS technology. This is the picture from one of our studies where we measured the clarity of vision at a distance of 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, and 5 millimeters. Exit location of the laser tip. Exit location of the laser tip is a very important thing. The laser fiber tip actually can exit at 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock commonly, but in a few disposable scopes, it can also be seen at 12 o'clock. Unlike the U scope and the LithoVue, which have an exit at 9 o'clock, endoscope has a laser exit at 9 o'clock as compared to LithoVue and U scope, which have an exit at 3 o'clock. So I repeat, the exit of the laser fiber of the endoscope is at 9 o'clock. Now, deflection is a very important component. As I said, that the dual deflection of 270 degrees on both the sides can be achieved with this particular scope. What is more important that you can see in this particular videos is that with the accessory in situ, the deflection is maintained. Here you see the upper video shows a basket in situ, and with the basket in situ, the deflection of over 270 degrees can be achieved. With a fiber in situ also, the deflection of 270 degrees can be achieved. And mind you, this is not a new scope or a first use scope that I'm using to demonstrate deflection. Also, an interesting finding is that in the deflected state, it is slightly easier to put in a fiber even at an angle of about 250 degrees. Irrigation is maintained. Irrigation in an empty channel is very good, and as you put in accessories of up to 1.9 French, the irrigation is maintained. We have an experience of about 30 cases, and the irrigation has always been good in all the cases. So, when you compare the vision What when you compare the vision of the U-scope, endoscope, and LithoVue, because these are the three proprietary things. Definitely, it is comparable, though without objective analysis, it is improper to say that the one scope has a better vision than other. But definitely, it is, to say the least, comparable, and the color enhancement, I would say, is slightly on a better side as compared to the U-scope. Though obviously without any objective analysis, it is improper to make a comment. It has a field. It has a field of view of about 110 degrees, and the depth ranges about 2 to 50 mm. So we have an experience of 30 cases, all complete clearance, one scope malfunction, no flexion loss, and this is a clinical scenario that I'm using to demonstrate the vision. The vision is very good. And this is a lower pole axis. You can see the lower pole axis with an accessory in situ. The lower pole can be easily accessed. It works for 21 hours, much more than any other scope. So is it truly disposable? So I would leave you with the thought that it is one of the scopes available in the disposable segment. If it works for 21 hours, then it is not truly disposable. It is very good in terms of ergonomics, optics, and irrigation. Deflection is maintained even after 10 to 15 uses. So this is my take-home message, and I leave you with this parting thought that we must think about carbon footprint of all the disposable scopes as we keep on using them. Thank you for a patient listening.
Thank you, Abhishek, for that nice overview of the Biorad disposable thing. So if you stop sharing, I can go for the next talk, and that is very, very important as to what is the cost implication, because ultimately we have seen from the previous three talks that there is a point in going for the single-use ureteroscope, as highlighted by the previous speakers, irrespective whether you are using LithoVue, whether you are using PUSEN or the Biorad. Definitely there is a point to go for a single-use ureteroscope from the point of view of the quality and various other advantages. However, the buck in India will stop at the cost implication. If any instrument which is not cost viable is not going to work in India, and that is obvious that in our country, most of the patients, even though the insurance penetration is increasing, still majority of the patients pay the money from their own pocket. And therefore, there is a limitation to which you can ask for the disposable items. There is a limitation to which you can increase the cost of the procedure. And therefore, there are a lot of implications about the cost. And I'm going to give you a brief overview as to what are the cost analysis of a single-use ureteroscope. Obviously, as I said, that in our country, when we are talking of the discussion about the single-use ureteroscope, or for that matter, any single-use item, we need to understand what is our ground reality. We are not talking about what is happening in UK, what is happening in USA, and what are the Western countries' laws and various other things. We are not interested in discussing that. And therefore, this webinar is meant only for the Indian urologists, and we are talking only of our experience, our own view. So we have to understand what is the ground reality in our country. Well, we reuse almost everything, even guide wires, implants, we reuse, which are strictly speaking, all disposable items. Flexible ureteroscopy has a lot of wear and tear as compared to any other instruments in urology. Because if you see the equipment wise, majority of the equipments are long lasting, but the flexible ureteroscope, people have spoiled even in 2 uses and 5 uses and 10 uses. So it has got a huge amount of wear and tear, and unless and until the cost becomes viable, the indications of flexible ureteroscopy are not going to increase. And that is the main hindrance why flexible ureteroscopy has not taken place or a jump as compared to the Western country, why we keep doing mini perc much more for even the 1 centimeter stone, which in no way the Western country will go for the mini PCNL, but the cost implication comes in. Generally, when we are comparing the reusable versus disposable, the manpower cost which which Western people are calculating, that should not be considered, or that is to be considered in a completely different aspect, because manpower here is not too much costly. At the same time, we don't like to throw away anything, what we use it. Our culture is not use and throw, but our culture is to preserve, and therefore we are all, Abhishek showed this slide of green movement and things like that. There is no point in throwing away everything. When we consider the cost to the patient, we have to also consider what is the cost to the atmosphere, what is the cost to the environment, and the cost implication includes everything. So let us see first the cost consideration of reusable versus disposable. When we are discussing this, we have to consider the cost of equipment, cost of washing, sterilization, etc., the cost of repairs, the average use of the reusable scopes, fiber optic as well as digital, and the most important thing, that if we are saying that it can be reused and it can be used for multiple times, whether the quality of the vision and deflection, what all these three speakers have shown, whether it remains still and up to that point or not. So these are the things which we need to consider. Now let us see the cost of reusable flexible ureteroscope. I'm going to consider only STARS and Olympus because these are the two prevalent ureteroscopes which are used in our country. The Flex S2 cost has dramatically gone down after the introduction of the reusable or disposable scopes, and that probably is the collateral benefit, that the reusable ureteroscope, which was costing around 5.5 or 6 lakhs, now you are going to get it at 4.25 lakhs, and this is the cost from the STARS agent itself. Flex SC, however, still remains extremely expensive. This is the cost of scope is 13 lakhs, and you have to buy the hub and the monitor and all that complete rack cost 28 lakhs. Olympus P7, which is the prevalent, cost 6.16 lakh. These are all including of GST. 12% GST is included in this. So the digital scope of Olympus is much cheaper as compared to Flex XC. Now let us see the cost per case when you are using the fiber optic reusable ureteroscope. Now it all depends on how long you are going to use the ureteroscope. Suppose if you use 20 cases and your average use of one flexible ureteroscope, or if you damage in the average use of 20 cases, you are actually taking about 21,000 rupees cost per case. That is a cost which actually you are paying for the cost of equipment. Suppose if you use instrument for 40 cases, gradually it will keep on decreasing. If you use more than 100 cases, the cost per case is still going to be 4,250. So that is how the cost is going to be. Same thing is for Olympus. Olympus is a little costly, and therefore if you use 70 cases, 100 cases, you are going to bear this cost. The question is that how many cases majority of the people are going to use it? If you see in Western countries, the average use of the reusable ureteroscope, especially the fiber optic, is about 15 to 18 cases. Whereas in India, we use it very, very carefully. And Dr. Manor is here. There are many other experienced urologists. Prabhakar is here, and they have used more than 100, more than 150 cases. So obviously the cost is going to go down. But if you see on an average, if you take a general population, a general urologist, the average use of the reusable scope lies between 40 to 50 cases. So that is the roughly cost which you are going to incur per case if you use the reusable scope. That is about 8 to 10,000 rupees per case. Now let us see the cost of single-use ureteroscope. Well, the LithoVue all-inclusive GST causes per scope 94,000. The processing units cost 4.1 lakh, but this is a one-time investment, and this is a recurring investment. This is once you buy this will last for lifelong. Similarly, Busan costs much less. It is 72,800 one scope, and the processing unit is much cheaper. Now they are giving only processing unit. The monitor can be used your own HD monitor, and Biorad costs 89,600 rupees including GST. Their processing unit is 3.5. The beauty of Busan and Biorad is that they just give a processing unit, which is something like a set-top box, and you can use your own HD monitor, so you don't have to spend again on the monitor, whereas LithoVue provides its own monitor. Now, this is the cost which is official cost. And if you see, there are many people who give some packages, but we are not going to go into the what schemes and what packages they are giving, but this is the official cost. Let us consider about it. The LithoView, the life is only for 4 hours. After 4 hours, it will stop functioning. And what we have seen is that on an average, if you reuse the scope properly, average number of cases which you can do in LithoView is about 8 cases. So roughly, if you consider the 30 minutes is the one case, then with Pusan is also for 4 hours, you can do 8 cases. And if you consider 30 minutes as one case, then Bio-Rad life is about 21 hours. So you can theoretically do 42 cases. So if you see the cost per case in LithoView, if you see for 8 cases, if you use it more cases, obviously this will go down, is roughly around 11,000. The Pusan will cost about 9,000, and Bio-Rad will cost about 2,000, some slightly more than 2,000 rupees. I am not considering the sterilization costs because that is same for reusable, disposable, etc. I am not considering the cost of the process unit because that is like even for the reusable, you need to have certain monitors and other things. And this is how we pack it and we write down. And we have seen that how many cases, in fact, we are monitoring and writing for each and every case that how many cases we have used it. This is about 17th use of Bio-Rad, and that is how it can last. Now, the biggest important or the most important aspect is the quality. If you use it for 4 hours, is the quality same? If you use it for 18 hours, if you use it for 15 hours, if you use it for that much time, is the quality remain same? Well, as per our experience, LithoView, Pusan, the quality for the first and the quality for the fourth hour case is almost the same. Bio-Rad, we have not yet crossed 21 hours of consumption of Bio-Rad, but whatever still we have used for more than about 20 cases, the quality is quite, we are quite happy with the quality, and there is not much difference between what is the first use of scope and what is the 10th and the 15th and the 16th use of a scope. So lastly, if you consider here the reusable cost and the disposable cost or single use cost, this table we have seen before, but if you see this cost, the LithoView per case, if you use on an average 8 cases, will about the 11,000, 9,000, 2,000. Even if theoretically, suppose if you consider that 42 cases, you reduce to the half cases and use only 20 cases or so, still it will be much cheaper of consider of 4,000 rupees cost, which will be much more than the, much less than the 100 cases of reusable ureteroscope. So that way, if you see the judicious use of LithoView or Pusan or Bio-Rad, all will be quite cost beneficial, because the question here is that you may use one scope for 60 cases, 70 cases, but there is no guarantee that the next scope which you are using may conk off in 10 cases. So if you see the average use in 10 years or 15 years of your using ureteroscope, the average cost is going to be much less. There is always a risk that when you are using a flexible ureteroscope, especially the reusable scope, as Gantpule highlighted, there is always a risk to go to the lower calyx because you don't want to go. There are many people who do not use reusable scope for the lower calyx, instead they do Miniper. So that consideration is there because there is always a risk that you may damage ureteroscope and then you are at loss. Whereas that sort of consideration is not there with the disposable scope. And you can be adventurous. Your indication for flexible ureteroscopy can be increased, and those are the benefits. So what are the other cost considerations which are actually hidden benefits? The peace of mind. Risking of 4 to 5 lakhs rupees scopes every time is very risky, and you get a peace of mind. We don't consider that cost, but that definitely is a cost. The reusable scope may go away in 10 cases, so that you are finished completely. You are getting a digital quality image, lightweight instrument in a disposable ureteroscope, which we are not going to get in the fiber optic reusable ureteroscope. And if you consider the cost, it just cannot be viable if you consider a digital ureteroscope, reusable ureteroscope. Training, as Gantpule highlighted, the juniors in the department can be given when the last 30 minutes are remaining. Okay, they can be considered the resident or the Junior people can be, okay, whatever you want to do it, use it, because there is no problem of risking the instrument. Though lower calyx stones can be treated by RIRS, last 30 minutes, awkward angle, you can try all adventurous thing, and you can keep a separate scope which can be used for such adventurous cases. And therefore, with the use of a disposable scope, your indications of RIRS also can become liberal. And therefore, if you consider from the Indian perspective, if you follow proper protocol, if you use it very carefully, I think reusing single-use flexible ureteroscope has the potential to become the thing of the future. Thank you very much. Now, with this, I'm going to end my talk, but I'm going to ask now Dr. Prabhakar to deliver a most important talk, which I think most of us in the audience and all of us are going to are waiting for it, is what are the legal implications. We have seen in foreign countries that moment anybody writes that it is single-use ureteroscope or single-use item, nobody is allowed to use because there are legal take you in the court. Then what are the NABH guidelines? Do they allow to use a single-use item to be used again and again? So all these legal implications and guidelines, I'm going to ask Dr. Prabhakar to cover. So Prabhakar, please come forward. Prabhakar, as you know, is a consultant urologist. He is now also a professor. He is heading a teaching institute. He has a huge experience of doing flexible ureteroscopy. In fact, there are a number of students who have trained under him and now are become the mentors for the rest of the people to teach flexible ureteroscopy. So that is the amount of grip on the flexible ureteroscopy which he has. And he has studied several angles. So over to you, Prabhakar. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. I first of all thank you and Mahesh sir for giving me this opportunity. The topic given to me is one topic which will throw light on various factors. When you asked me to talk on this, I was really a little reluctant because legal aspect, and when the audience is seeing this, I need to give a real take-home message on what will happen if you reuse a single-use flexible ureteroscope. But fortunately, on reviewing a lot of literature and things like that, I have got a lot of data which is very convincing, and you had at least told 3 or 4 times in your introduction and in your talk that this symposium is meant only for Indian scenario. Yes. But that is not true, because the data which I'm going to show you is really a different thing. The second thing is, it is all depending on the supply and demand. All the Western countries were talking only about single use, particularly United Kingdom, and we don't reuse the disposable items. But what happened now? N95 mask, there is no option. Now they started reusing it, and they formed guidelines on reusing the N95 mask, even in UK, US, Australia, everywhere. So that is the scenario. Just because they are all developed country doesn't mean that the scenario will not change. It has changed already. So in Indian scenario, reusable scopes are present, and single-use ureteroscopy can be reused. This is not new. Reusing a single-use disposable items. I'm not having data pertaining only to flexible ureteroscope, but I've collected data with all the disposable items which are reused. This started way back in 1970s. The main reprocessing of reuse or single-use disposable scope is disinfection, cleaning, sterilization, packing, labeling, and storing. So these are the major points which has to be highlighted. So there is a big debate between the infection of the patient when reusing the disposable scope and the integrity of the scope as such. Because there is a very high risk, theoretical risk, that the scope might malfunction inside the body of the patient, and that can cause danger. So these are the unanswered questions which, if addressed properly, then I think we can be more safe and clear, and legally we can be saved. So reuse of disposable items started way back in 1970 when the ethylene oxide, ETO sterilization was in picture. US started the first reuse processing by hiring a third-party reuse reprocessor. The US FDA conducted a review in 1990 and 2000 and released a document, a guideline, the requirement for reprocessing. And then they changed the act, they amended the act, Medical Device User Fee Act of 2002. And they've clearly given guidelines that the reprocessor should be a third-party processor and he should follow all the terms and conditions as the manufacturer. But said in that, every time the manufacturer says that this is for single use, if it is used, reused, and something happens, the manufacturer is not responsible. So the onus of the reprocessed reusable scope goes to the third-party processor, who's almost like a new manufacturer. So let us see what other countries do. US FDA has passed an act to give it to a third party. Canada has a lot of territory. Each territorial health agency has power to form their own policy on reusing single-use disposable items. In 2003, Australia also followed same as US, and they allowed third-party reprocessors with the same regulations of original manufacturer. Germany had regulations with in-house and third-party reprocessors. UK didn't allow, but now they are forced to do it for N95 mask. France says reusing a single-use scope is illegal. So this Canadian Healthcare Association came out with guidelines where they told that there should be a reuse committee who is monitoring all this process, which I told initially, the washing, sterilization, storing, and other things. A written standard operating procedure should be documented, and validation of all the data should be done, and there should be a quality assurance team to supervise these processes. There are various studies assessing the complications of reuse of the disposable equipments. There are a lot of studies which are for and a lot of studies which are against. But the gist of the story is every equipment should be studied individually and an SOP should be created and formed to that particular equipment. Only then that equipment should be put into the list of reuse of single-use equipments. So let us see what WHO says. World Health Organization gave a lot of guidelines, and initially they were apprehensive on reusing single-use disposable items. But then they were forced to do it because World Health Organization has a lot of underdeveloped and developing countries under them. So at least they told, okay, have a written policy. Critical and semi-critical equipment should not be reused, and devices which are difficult to clean, small lumen, should not be reused. So these are the guidelines given by WHO on reusing disposable equipments. JCI, Joint Commission International, had published a white paper document in 2017, and they have clearly mentioned all the pros and cons of reusing a disposable equipment. And they came out with standards. This is the Infection Control Standard 7, and AAC, QPS, and all the standards are very clearly given by the JCI. Accredited hospitals should follow, and the hospital must have a policy guiding reuse and identify the risk of infection, quality check protocols. So these are the common things, but they have kept one flaw that they should comply with the country's law. So this is the biggest problem, because as much as I could search, I think only Australia and US has legally allowed with the certain guidelines. But I don't think any other countries have a legal protocol or legal law or amendment which says that you can reuse disposable items. NABH, even in 4th edition, there was classes of reusing disposable items. But in 5th edition, it is very clearly mentioned that the organization identifies single-use instruments to be reused, and it has to be listed out. And the number of reuses should be defined very clearly. And the process of reuse should be defined and monitored. And an informed consent. This is the most important thing which has to be highlighted. An informed consent should be got from the patient. That what are the pros and cons, and what is the complication possible while reusing a disposable scope, and if the patient, and this is done for the cost consideration. If the patient says, no, I don't want a concern on this, then fine, he has to pay out of his pocket for the single-use scope. So SOP of cleaning and sterilization should be clearly mentioned. So this is the guidelines given by NABH. Coming to the fantastic work done by an Indian cardiology colleagues, Aditya Kapoor and et al. They have done a wonderful study, and this gives guidance on reuse of cardiovascular catheters and devices in India, a consensus document. So this very clearly has done a study on all the disposable items used for a cardiovascular, for a cath lab, and even for the pacemakers, and they have listed out clearly which can be reused, which cannot be reused, and the number of reuses in each segment. And there is a clear-cut SOP given in this journal about how to reprocess this one and how to label how many uses you are doing it. So I would strongly suggest that USI or institutions like NADIAD should take up this task on doing a clear-cut analysis on reusing. A pilot study should be done, and same type of guidelines should be followed. So if these are things followed, because WHO has given guidelines, JCI has given guidelines, NABH has given guidelines, CDC has given guidelines. So if the problem goes to the court, then we can quote that guidelines, and we can even quote the FDA approval on reusing the disposables, provided, there is a hinge, provided we get a proper informed consent from the patient that he is willing to accept the reuse of the disposable items. So if that is clearly done, then I think we won't be in any trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhakar. I think this was a really an eye-opener talk, and I myself really did not know that even JCI has made these guidelines, and even America and Australia, they have made a law that the reuse of single-use items can be done. So it was a really wonderful talk. Thank you for doing that, lots of research and presenting in this forum. Thank you very much. I think what Dr. Prabhakar has said has lots of things to take away from this webinar. And we have been doing with exactly what he has said and what the guidelines are being saying, that the reusing item, we are informing, we are taking proper precautions, we have found out our own guidelines, we have found out our own protocols, how it can be done, and to make sure that safety of the patient is all the time maintained. Patient should not be at risk at any given time just because you want to save the cost, or just because patient also want to save the cost. And I'm going to tell Dr. Rohan Batra, who is the fellow with us, to tell us what protocol we are following and how we are going to, we are sterilizing the single-use ureteroscopes, and how exactly is our experience. So he's going to cover in next 5 minutes what is our experience, what is our protocol, and how we do it. So over to you, Rohan. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Sabnis sir and Desai sir, for allowing me to speak on the experience of sterilization and maintenance of single-use disposable scopes. The most commonly used single-use disposable scopes available in India are U-Scope by Pusen Medical, LithoVue by Boston Scientific, and Endoscope by Biorad Medicis Indovasive. Now, let us go back to the basics. Let us define sterilization. It is defined as the process by which an article surface is freed of all the living microorganisms, either in vegetative state or the spore states. And disinfection means the process that eliminates all pathogenic microorganisms, but bacterial spores are not eliminated. And thus, disinfection can be divided into 3 parts. We'll only focus on high-level disinfection, where shorter exposure periods of sterilizers kill all the microorganisms except a large number of bacterial spores. That is, a few bacterial spores are still alive. Now, let us go back to the Spalding's classification. That is, he divided in medical devices into three objects: critical, semi-critical, and non-critical. The critical objects which enter normally sterile tissue or the vascular system, which require sterilization. Semi-critical objects that come into contact with mucous membranes or non-intact skin and require high-level disinfection. But according to Spalding's criteria, the flexible ureteroscopes come under semi-critical devices. However, since we use the laser fibers, baskets, there are chances of bleedings during the procedure and there is high pressure. We can consider the flexible ureteroscope as critical devices. Hence, sterilization is important and not high-level disinfection. Now, the flexible ureteroscopes, which we get pre-packed by the company, are usually sterilized by ETO. Now, what are the methods available for us for reprocessing of flexible ureteroscopes? So the common methods available are glutaraldehyde, peracetic acid, ETO, and STERRAD, that is plasma sterilization. Now, how we do it, I'll tell you the standard operating protocols of MPUH. So the reprocessing of flexible ureteroscope is first by manual cleaning, then we rinse it, then we dry it, sterilize it, and then we store it. In the next few slides, I'll be giving the idea about this circle. So cleaning with running water. As soon as the case is completed, we have to remove all the debris and all the soiling on the ureteroscope with the help of running tap water. There is some hypochlorite solution added in the water also, that is 5% hypochlorite solution. And with the help of a water jet system, we clean the water jet of the flexible ureteroscope. Here we see the water jet entering the lumen of the ureteroscope. So all the water, all the debris is cleaned off with the help of the running water. After cleaning with the running water, then we come cleaning with the compressed air. That is, the compressed air dries up the scope and the lumen is also cleaned with the help of the compressed air. Here we see all the lumen, all the channels are cleaned with the compressed air. That is, the channel also has been dried up. After that, we dry it and we preheat it. That is, thorough drying is necessary to prevent any growth of waterborne microorganisms. Sometimes there are several outbreaks of Pseudomonas aeruginosa, pneumonia, Acinetobacter, and other pathogens which can be there because of insufficient drying. Furthermore, biofilms and embedded microorganisms need moisture for survival. Thus, sometimes the sterilization cycle may also fail if drying is inadequate. Excuse me. My slide is not changing.
Yeah, go ahead, Rohan.
Yes, sir. My slide is not changing, sir. Just a minute.
You can stop share and then reshare.
Yes, sir. I'll stop share and reshare, sir, again.
Yeah. Go ahead fast.
Yes, sir.
तो म्हणतो की थांब 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 जा मी त्याला म्हणतो एक होतंय आवाज जोरात येतोय का
Coming?
Yes, sir. Coming, sir. Yes, sir. I'm back, sir. So,
yeah, okay.
Yes, sir. So we clean with running water. We clean with the compressed air. After that,
Yeah.
we dry it. So we dry it in the sterile system where it is dried at around 45 degrees Celsius for around 10 to 15 minutes. Working.
Go ahead.
Not able to change my slide.
No,
Just
but you just keep speaking. Just don't go full screen and just keep speaking.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Because we don't have much time now.
So can you see my slide?
Yeah. So go to the slide which you are discussing.
Yes, sir.
Don't make full screen and just go ahead. So your slide is stuck. It's not
yes,
going
sir.
forward. So you can talk without the slides.
Yes, sir.
So meanwhile, while you are preparing, I want to ask a question to PP Rao. PP, you are there?
I'm here.
Yeah. So there are a lot of questions which have come in, but I'm going to take very few specific questions.
Okay.
The question is that when you are using the LithoView, and you said that you have a lot of almost 1 year you have given up. What about the insurance company and TPI in our country? Do they completely reimburse this, or what is the current policy with them?
So what we do is we charge for the first use of the LithoView. We do not charge for any further use.
Okay.
We only charge when we open a new scope. We charge the full amount. We have a agreement with the hospital that there no markup will be charged.
Okay.
So we have an invoice copy and we give the invoice copy to the insurance company. It is charged as any consumable and they pay the full amount.
So in your experience, there is no problem for insurance reimbursing the 1 lakh rupees disposable scope. There is no problem.
The thing is that otherwise they have to give you in writing that don't charge for a disposable. Reuse it. They cannot give that. The government has given clear-cut instruction that you cannot reuse disposables. So because with cardiac caths and all, so they are used to now paying for it. But only thing is you require bill copy. So you cannot charge for second patient that time, obviously.
Right. Okay. So Rohan, are you ready?
Okay, sir. So after drying, sir, can you see my screen, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, so after drying, we check the lever mechanisms before we seal the packet. So we place the scope in a neutral position, and then we do the sealing of the scope in a plastic wrap and paper wrap in a sealing machine. So after sealing the machine, sealing it, we put it in the sterile 100 NX, which is H2O2 plasma sterilizer. Now it is bactericidal, virucidal, and fungicidal, and destroys even the prions. It is a low temperature hydrogen peroxide gas plasma sterilization. The advantage is that it does not require any aeration. There are no chemical residues and there are negligible environmental concerns. So usually we operate all the flexible ureteroscopes in a duo cycle where they are reprocessed for 60 minutes. That is, it is for processing of flexible endoscopes and cameras together. Now, there are biological indicators kept with the thing, which turn from yellow to red while storage. Now, ethylene oxide is also a common sterilization method. It is carried out between 30 and 60 degrees Celsius with relative humidity of around 30% and a gas concentration between 200 to 800 milligram per liter for at least 3 hours. The ethylene oxide penetrates well, moving through paper, cloth, and some plastic films, and it is highly effective. Now, ETO can kill all the known viruses, bacteria, and fungi, and including bacterial spores. It is highly flammable and requires longer time to sterilization. It also requires a period of post-sterilization aeration to remove toxic residues. And ETO is also known carcinogenic and toxic for the environment. Now, some people will ask, if it is a semi-critical item, then why not glutaraldehyde and why not high-level disinfection? So glutaraldehyde is a high-level disinfectant. And if at all Sidex is used for high-level disinfection, then only the shaft of the scope has to be immersed in the Sidex and not the handle, because the handle of the scope contains light source and chip connections which can get damaged by the Sidex. Again, glutaraldehyde has slow action against the bacterial spores, and for sterilization, it requires immersion for 12 hours. Again, the glutaraldehyde is irritant to skin and mucous membranes. There are adverse effects for patients if there is insufficient rinsing, and it is absorbed by the endoscope surfaces even after thorough rinsing. It fixes proteins and promotes residue film creation. And same problems are there with peracetic acid, that is, it is irritant to the mucosal surfaces, and the acid-related coagulation of proteins is possible on the scopes, which can transmit proteins from one patient to another, and it can damage the surfaces of the endoscopes. So the take-home message is that if we want to sterilize flexible ureteroscopes, then only plasma sterilization and ETO may be used, because the pre-packed we get by ETO sterilization or plasma sterilization. Glutaraldehyde and peracetic acid are usually high-level disinfectants, and they are not sterilization. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Rohan. You have covered most of the things what we are doing it. And I think the many of the questions are already answered. There are many questions which we are not going to take up. But there are 2-3 questions which I want to put it for the benefit of the audience. First of all, I must thank Dr. Chibber, who is also watching, and he is very much interested in the discussion what is being going on. He has congratulated Dr. Prabhakar, very nice overview which you have given. And he has also suggested that USI actually should form a guidelines in the, as suggested by Dr. Prabhakar, the guidelines which they have made from the NABH and JCI, so that it will be useful for the common members to show that these are the guidelines in our own country. Now, Prabhakar, I want to ask one question which is asked by a few people, is that as PP Rao said, that you charge only for the first case and then you don't charge. Now, when you said that you have to define as per the guidelines that how many users you are going to do it. So how they suggest the cost should be divided? Do you define that number of users and divide the cost and tell the patient that this is what is going to be the cost? What are the guidelines on that?
So this basically a pilot study has to be done to assess, right. As you told, that this scope comes to last for 8 cases. Yes. But it's not true in every time. It might break in 3 cases, or sometimes it might exceed 12 to 13 cases.
Yes.
So on an average, we have to keep that number, and we have to divide it accordingly. So if suppose we have it for 8 cases, and then that is a study, the design should be like that, wherein resident, when he is doing how much time how many cases he is able to do with the scope, or if the experienced consultant, how many hours or how many cases he is able to do with the scope. So all these things should be brought into consideration, and with an average, maybe little bit 10 or 20%, little on a higher side, we can keep it, and then we can fix the charge. It all depends on each institution and their way of doing it and how fast they are able to do it. So all this criteria should be put together to decide on the cost.
Right. Okay. Thank you. There is one more question which has been repeatedly asked. Is that I'm going to answer it. That can Sidex be used for the sterilization? Well, my answer is that the Sidex, first of all, is not the method of sterilization. It's a high-level disinfectant. But the other problem of these scopes is that the reusable scopes, we dip it into the Sidex. But so far, nobody has tried to dip into the Sidex, and obviously the companies of LithoVue, and they are not going to suggest anything because they will say we don't know and we don't want to answer. But certainly we need to really try on this. So far, we have not tried this. And why we have not tried this, we are using only hydrogen peroxide or ETO, is because as per the NABH guidelines, you must use the sterilization method which the company uses for sterilization. So that is one of the guidelines which we were told. And therefore, what we are using it is that the either ETO or the hydrogen peroxide, and and that is what we are using. We don't know about the side effects, and therefore we are not using it. Prabhakar, you want to add it, and then I think I'll ask people.
Sir, NABH doesn't say that actually. NABH doesn't say like what type of sterilization should be done. That is not given in NABH. I think that's
okay. So because we were given impression that preferably you should use the sterilization method which company uses for sterilizing this scope.
No, sir. It is our hospital policy on how we are going to sterilize.
So that's very good. So that I think is a very encouraging answer. Well, P.P. Rao, you want to say something?
These scopes are a lot cheaper than the reusable digital scopes because they are not built to the same standard. They are not built to last. You cannot soak the heads of at least the LithoVue, I'm pretty sure, because it will not be usable anymore.
Even Pusen you cannot soak.
Yeah, you cannot soak. In fact, I'm not even sure the FlexX-C can be soaked with the head. Only the shaft can be soaked. So you're not going to be able to maintain sterility. That is first. Second thing is that one more thing which you mentioned about the scopes lasting 8 cases.
Right.
I don't think you can use the LithoVue beyond 4 or 5 cases. It's not a question of time. The deflection doesn't remain the same. The usability of the scope is much less. About the Biorad, because Lokesh is using the Biorad. I have not personally used it. And he's saying they're getting a lot of uses out of it. But if you look at the Biorad, it doesn't look like a disposable scope. It looks more like a reusable scope. It's built more robustly. The LithoVue definitely cannot be used beyond 4 or 5. And I would say the usage is not as great on the 4th and 5th time.
Well, at present, in our hospital, we are being using, and in fact, we are using all the disposable scopes. LithoVue, we have Pusen, and we have Biorad. And we are keeping a complete record of each and every scope. In fact, we are marking on each and every scope how many cases have been used, what time it has been used. Of course, time 4 hours you get, after 4 hours it gets blocked. But at the same time, our experience of LithoVue and Pusen is that deflection and the quality definitely remains okay. In fact, we are quite happy with the Biorad because we have been obviously 21 hours when any company says it just cannot be a use and throw scope. It is meant for the reusable scope. Obviously, there is no doubt about it. And we have used almost 21 uses, and it has remained almost quite okay. I mean, we are quite all right with the quality and with the flexion and other things. Obviously, when you use more and more scopes, these things will come into the clarity. But as our primary study, which we are undertaking, the LithoVue, Pusen, and Biorad, 4 hours, definitely it can be reused. Biorad is much better and much longer lasting. That's our preliminary opinion. We have to prove after completion of this study. But certainly, because of all these aspects, I feel the disposable scopes are going to here stay. And in fact, with such guidelines and with such use, they are going to be much cost viable option, as much better than the reusable scopes. And if you see from the Indian perspective, definitely the future lies in the disposable ureteroscope, which can be reused judiciously, appropriately, as per the guidelines and as per the informed consent. Well, before we wind up the thing, I must ask Dr. Mahesh Desai. Bosses always has the last word to say. So he is going to tell us the overview of this webinar, and he is going to tell us the concluding remarks. So over to you, sir, please.
Thank you, sir.
Concluding remarks, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Sabnis. It was wonderfully conducted because the disposable flexible ureteroscope is now is very popular. Just to share our experience, as you said, we have all the 3 flexible disposable scope with us, and in 2018 we had done total stone treatment. We had done about 850. And that time, the PCNL we have done was around 450. This year, last year, we have done 821, and PCNL has dropped to 361, and the flexible ureteroscopy has increased to 189. So that shows the changing trend And I must say, I mean, I'm an old timer, got used to PCNL. It's difficult to adapt to the new one. But all the young generation, they are extremely competent to pick up this. And I see it's used more and more. Only my worry is only one thing, is increased intrarenal pressure. PP says he doesn't use a sheath. Actually, yesterday I was doing one flexible ureteroscopy. And then at the end of it, I did a sonography around the kidney, and there was a fluid around the kidney, which you could see. Today, it is gone after giving a Lasix. So it is not all, I mean, flexible ureteroscopy is good because it is almost non-invasive from the, there is no extra, but, and it is a deflection and the vision is excellent and the cost effective is there. But one have to be very, luckily the Boston Scientific is coming out with the next generation of LithoVue, which has got pressure device, which will tell you exactly how much is the pressure intrarenal. So you would be also safe to use it. Secondly, when you are using a laser, there is a risk, there is a theoretical risk of increasing the temperature when you are breaking. So people are now using a flexible ureteroscopy for a very large stone, and you spend more time, and you've got to be very careful about this thing. But we have not seen much of complication and using it. And all the three speakers who gave the experience, and we are doing a randomized study also. So it is very useful. I think it is, this seminar has been very useful in demonstrating the technology, new technology for treating the stone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you are very rightly said that with the advent of the single-use ureteroscope, the indications of RIRS will increase, and I'm sure Dr. Prabhakar, Dr. Chandramohan, Dr. Kandap Parikh, who are traveling and mentoring so many people in the country, I think with the advent of single-use ureteroscope, the number of cases which will be done all over the country by the people will be increasing significantly, provided the proper guidelines are followed. I must thank Dr. Prabhakar for sparing the time and doing that excellent research, giving us the guidelines. And PP Rao, thank you for sharing your experience with LithoVue. I must thank all the speakers for a very nice talk, a well-prepared talk. And I'm sure this is the kind of the webinar which we wanted to have, to give the Indian experience for the Indian people. And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching must have got the appropriate message as to what they should go ahead, what they should do. And if at all they want to go ahead and use the disposable scope multiple times, what precautions they have to take. So once again, thank you very much. And with this, we end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.